And just where can we actually find it?
We're an IT infrastructure provider, so we provide the hosting for a lot of the companies that you see online on the net.
To the extent the internet looks like anything, it looks like this. Data from YouTube and many others is right inside these servers, and billions of dollars of business relies upon it.
A lot of the stuff you're seeing on the internet, a lot of these sites that you see on the net, they're actually being hosted here at Pier 1 in a lot of these servers that you're seeing. Now these are co-location, we call this co-location, where a client actually rents out the servers and puts it in these cabinets, and they get a clean connection to the internet with all the redundancy and all the power and all that buzzing you hear is to provide an ideal environment for these servers so they stay up 100% up, they get the 100% uptime guarantee of the network, and to make sure it gives their servers the best possible environment to run and function properly.
Here in the inner sanctum, security is, of course, tight. There's no room for error, and there's enough redundancy to ensure that even if there's a crash, the precious data will still be there. But although there's someone in command at each station, at the network level, is anyone really at the wheel?
When they link these networks together, the networks then take on a life of their own and move the information back and forth. In other words, a leaderless network in certain regards, because the different people who own the networks put them together to operate in almost an autonomous fashion.
I think possibly one of the most exciting things about the internet is that it's an artifact that's been created, engineered, but it's not a designed artifact in the way that a car is designed. So it's an artifact that's been collaboratively constructed by a whole population of designers, each responsible for some tinkering. It is like an organism. The internet is a very robust population of organisms, but we don't really know.
In many respects, the net is like a colony of ants, a community of social insects sharing a collective intelligence. Amazing things are created, yet no one is in control. Despite commercialization, censorship, and attempts to control it, the net keeps evolving in ways no one can predict.
The internet's a big place.
Scott Kirkpatrick is scientific coordinator of Evergrow, an international research project studying the internet.
We don't know how big the universe is because we haven't been able to see all the way to the farthest extremities of it. And I think the internet's a bit like that. The internet's structure is not written down anywhere. We're still finding it out.
And just how do you explore the structure of the internet? Evergrow is trying to map cyberspace with the help of over 10,000 volunteers around the world. Each one runs software that records data online, like tiny compass bearings, to help chart the contours of the net.
There are parts of the internet that we see every 10 minutes in our 3 million measurements a day, and there are also parts of the internet that we only see a couple times a month. So it's very hard to capture it all.
Information from the measurements is plotted on a visual representation of internet traffic patterns.
We put them together into a map, and we analyze the map over time to see how things are growing. And we also analyze the map to see how people participate in the internet.
In the outer circles are carriers with simple connections. Towards the center are the heavy hitters, major users and providers who exchange information through multiple channels. If this virtual galaxy has such a concentration at its nucleus, does that mean the internet is vulnerable at its very core?
What we found is that about a quarter of the internet really does depend on the nucleus. That's where they send their message, and the most connected parts of the internet then deal with the details of sending it onward. But 3/4 of the internet have peering connections, have backup connections, and have fairly high bandwidth connections, maybe just as good for their purposes as anything in the nucleus, anything in the intercontinental part. And those connections allow them to go completely around the world. So they are globally connected without relying on the nucleus.
That means the internet isn't likely to be brought down anytime soon by malicious hackers, severed undersea cables, overzealous sensors, or anything else.
I think that the structure of the internet tends to make it resilient to sort of attacking the actual physical infrastructure. There are so many people with vested interest in the internet now means that should there be some kind of threat, you could imagine a significant mobilization against it by companies like, you can't imagine Google is going to sit there and let something destroy the infrastructure that its business model is built on.
It started out as a very small scientific research project to something that grew well beyond its initial expectations to encompass a large portion of global commerce and everyday communications. There are huge stakes involved in controlling it, and so you find states competing over control of this environment, and corporations competing over control of this environment, and citizens competing with states and corporations. It's a pitched battle over the future of the internet.
As the stakes grow higher, the internet increasingly becomes the single system at the very foundation of human society. Where that system takes us and the way it shapes us will steer the next and most exciting chapter in human history.